Okay, good evening. It's 6:30 PM on Monday, July 14th, 2025. I'd like to call to order the Village of Brookfield Board meeting. Would everyone please join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Noah, can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Ketchmark.
Here.
Trustee Whitehead.
Here.
Trustee Hendricks.
Here.
Trustee Narimatsu.
Here.
Trustee Gilhooley.
Here.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Here.
President Garvey.
Here.
And Noah Reif filling in as Deputy Village Clerk for Clerk Melendez.
And Noah, thank you for filling in. Clerk Melendez is Coach Melendez right now. He's coaching the Brookfield girls 10U All-Stars in the district championship, and I believe it's in North Riverside. They're down 9-4 in the third inning right now, but they are a big comeback team, so they have to win 2 games. They need to win 2 games tonight to win the district, so Mike's there coaching them tonight, so good luck to the Brookfield ladies. We do not have any appointments and presentations at this point, so I will open it up to public comment. Is there anyone on this side of the room that would like to make any public comment? If you could just come to the microphone, please, and give us your name.
My name is Barbara Thatcher. I live at 4421 Vernon Avenue. I'm here today. I'll make it short and sweet.
Take your time.
Thank you. I'm here to talk about the situation with my neighbor, Plamen Peshov, who lives at 4423 Vernon Avenue. He has been reported numerous times for code violations, seemingly with no results. Personally, I have been calling for 8 years. His newest addition is a 22.5-foot storage trailer on the driveway. Private property, no trespassing signs in all his windows. And now 6 high-tech surveillance cameras around his building, the entire building. I specifically would like to draw attention tonight to the rat infestation. They come out day and night, all from the location of his property, and return to the same location. I have been told he has rights because he owns property. I've been inferred that to me by people in charge here in Brookfield. I would like to say I have rights also. A right to a safe and sanitary environment, a right to quiet enjoyment of my property without extreme clutter, odors, and pests. That's what I have to say. I hope someone will be able to help me.
Thank you. If Tim, could you just get her name and number? Libby is the head of the department. She's presenting tonight. She's also working the cameras tonight, but I will have her or someone from her staff reach out to you in the next day or so to discuss.
Okay, I know that Jordan has taken the guy to court.
Okay.
I know something is being addressed, but it's been addressed before. He'll get a fine, and then he retaliates even bigger and better than before.
They'll try and provide you an update. Things do, Cook County, the way when these things get sent to court, the way they're handled, they're somewhat beyond our control, but we're getting more aggressive in trying to prosecute these cases, and sometimes our only power is fining them and accruing fines, but they'll be able to give you more of an update as to the strategy going forward, and if you feel there's retaliation or anything improper. Obviously, we're concerned about rat infestation and everything else, so if there's things
We're talking 10, 15, 20 rats.
Okay.
They start out small, they're getting much bigger.
They tend to multiply, so.
You can't sit outside, you're afraid to bring your garbage to the dumpster in the back. It's really quite out of control.
So do you mind giving the village manager your phone number? You could give it to, you don't have to do it on the microphone. If you could just give him your, Thank you for coming out tonight.
Barbara, Thatcher, okay? My number will be 312.
All right, everybody cover their ears.
1064, and anyone can call about it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Is there anyone else on this side that has any public comment? Anybody on this side that has any public comment? Okay, hearing no further public comment, we'll move on to reports of special committees. Trustee Narimatsu, please.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve the corporate warrant dated July 14th, 2025, in the amount of $3,516,033.84.
Second.
The motion was made by Trustee Narimatsu, second by Trustee Hendricks. Any highlights or anything you want to point out?
Just about $1.6 million in water main and lead water service line work and the 2025 street improvement projects, so major infrastructure projects that are all, within budget. So that's it.
Okay, do any board members have any questions or comments related to the warrant? Okay, hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Whitehead?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Narimatsu?
Aye.
Trustee Gilhooley?
Aye.
And Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Just wanted to take a quick moment to recognize Doug Cooper and the Finance Department. They recently received the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association. And this award reflects the village's and the team's commitment to transparency, accountability, and communication of the village's financial priorities. So thank you to your team and congratulations. With regard to DPW, just wanted to thank DPW staff for all their hard work on the July 4th parade and the party in the park. The fountain looked great, all the streets, all the plantings looked great, and really the changing course was seamless, I think. I felt like we've been doing that for years, so thank you for that. And as always, whether you have a pothole or roadkill, the best way to get something taken care of by our Public Works Department is by submitting a C-Click Fix ticket on the village's website. That ends my report.
Thank you, Trustee Narimatsu. Trustee Gilhooley, Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, and if it's okay, I'll also do a mental health
Absolutely,
update
please.
after.
Please.
Yes, so the Chamber of Commerce had their regular meeting today at the library, and a lot of updates. So everything is going great so far with the Brookfield shops. I just wanted to mention that there is a Sip and Shop event this Friday where they'll be offering wine while you shop. So just a kind of a nice little draw there. And also, the trolley service was started last weekend to the shops from a couple of different locations in Brookfield, a couple of different parking lots, Ellert and 31st Street, and also from the farmers market. So that was the inaugural trolley service. So good start so far, and I encourage people to take advantage of both of those events. The farmers market is going really strong. A lot of vendors each week. It's very crowded, and a lot of wonderful things to shop for. So I encourage you to do that. Still going on every Saturday from now through October. In addition to that, they are the Dancing with the Chamber. They're happy to announce that next year there'll be another Dancing with the Chamber, and the planning has already started for that. So it'll be next spring, which will be March 26th. And Teresa Swanson is heading up those efforts for the Chamber again. 60 to Win, which is our annual raffle, where you can buy raffle tickets each year. They get thrown into a spinning basket, and you get cash prizes every single week. So please go to the Chamber website to check that out, and you can also buy your tickets online. This year's a little bit different. The Classic Car Show is coming up on July 27th, and you can also check the website for more details there. National Night Out, which is an annual event we do, will be Tuesday, August 5th. And then the Brookfield Fine Arts Festival is coming up farther into September, so I'll wait to give you some updates there. The other thing I wanted to mention, so that's it for the Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to just bring to everyone's attention, the community, that we do have a lot of community resources for seniors, for veterans, for people with intellectual disabilities, from car services to therapy to events and activities. And if you go to the village website, the village has done a wonderful job. Thank you, staff, for pulling all of these things together for you. So if you go under community menu, there's an option called Community Resources, and you will see links to resources for all the mental health commissions that support Brookfield from all the various townships, from Riverside and Lyons and Proviso. You can call them for any reason, but there's tons and tons of resources here for yourself or for a loved one or some, maybe a neighbor that you know that might need some special assistance. So I encourage you to use this resource. And that ends my report.
Thank you, Trustee Gilhooley. Trustee Hendricks, Planning and Zoning and Library.
The library's next meeting is July 23rd, and the Plan Commission's next meeting is the very next day, the 24th. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Trustee Ketchmark.
There has been no meeting of the Economic Development Commission. There will be this coming Wednesday at 8:30. Topics to include continued discussion of the economic incentive policy, which we are discussing this evening, as well as the business retention survey. I will report back after that. There is another event coming up at the Brookfield Shops a week from Friday, July 25th, from 11:30 to 12:30. This is the inaugural Community Development Corner. It'll be a casual opportunity to connect with village staff and learn about the updates on the community development projects within the village. So hopefully we'll get some good attendance there. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Ketchmark. Trustee Whitehead.
The Parks and Rec Commission has not met since our last meeting. They will meet tomorrow, Tuesday, July 15th at 6:30 p.m. here at Village Hall. Just a couple community event-related updates. As Trustee Narimatsu mentioned, the 4th of July parade was a great success. The altered route, big crowds all along the parade route and at the party in the park. The free Friday night concert series at Kiwanis Park continues this Friday, July 18th at 7 p.m. with Evil Burrito, a pop rock band that is really excellent. My kids are excited for that. We are already thinking about next school year. So registration is open for the Before and After School STARS program. For anyone not familiar, the program provides supervised care for students in Districts 95 and District 103, serving children from kindergarten through 5th grade. To register, you can visit the village website and click register for rec programs, and you will find STARS registration for next school year. Sales continue for the annual Brookfield Duck Race in support of the Brookfield Parks and Recreation Foundation. The foundation helps low-income families access parks programs. You can buy ducks in person at the farmers market from Trustee Narimatsu and myself and many other board members and volunteers. You can also buy them in person, I mentioned the farmers market, or online at tinyurl.com/Brookfield Ducks. The duck race is in September. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Whitehead. Trustee Kaluzny.
Yes, the Conservation Commission met on June 24th. They're in full swing planning their fall Meet the Creek event, which has been moved to October 4th. And I'm sure will be delightfully 80s weather still in October, so it'll be great. And they're working on the different vendors to have there, as well as the rounding up some kayaks and canoes from folks around town and through rentals. But it's always a really great event to have some first-time folks try out the creek. They're also just finished on the 4th of July weekend. They were at the farmers market asking residents about bike rack locations that they'd like to see. And so they got a lot of feedback during that session throughout the day from lots of teens that were excited to share their input, and also folks from all over town. So it was a really great way to get some feedback on bike racks. And then they have their final meeting with the National Park Service coming up next week on July 25th. If you remember, we had the technical assistance grant from NPS to work at Creekside Woods on trails and signage and kind of how do you best use that land and do some community engagement. And so our kind of final meeting to wrap up that grant with the our main point of contact is next week. And so there should be some report back to the staff and the board that I can share after that. And they're also meeting with DPW in a couple of weeks to talk about a fall electronics recycling event, as well as a couple of other initiatives. So I'll report back on when those dates are finalized. Their next meeting is July 22nd at 6 p.m. here at Village Hall. The Beautification Commission met on July 1st. They voted on their Garden of the Month, and that was published on social media, got a lot of good feedback, and now they're accepting July nominations. So definitely, if you have a beautiful garden, you should submit it. And then they're also working on, September is going to be a Best Native Plants Garden. And so you can actually submit throughout the whole summer. If your native plant garden looks better now than it might look in September, you can submit it now, but those will be voted on in September and awarded that month. They are having a special meeting actually tomorrow night, July 15th. We'll be discussing some 2026 budget items. And then their next regular meeting will be September 1st at 6:30 p.m. at Village Hall. That ends my report.
Thank you, Trustee Kaluzny. The WCMC, or Solid Waste Agency, have not met since our last meeting. Last Thursday, I was invited to. Unfortunately, I was unable to make it due to a conflict with my day job, but they had the ribbon cutting for the new exhibits, the gorilla exhibits. Tim was able to attend. I believe maybe Tim will give some kind of update or tease. I was very disappointed to miss because I saw some pictures and heard some great vibes about how phenomenal the new exhibit is, and it's just been very well attended in the few days that it's been open. So I'm really disappointed that I couldn't make it, but I thank Tim for going there. I also want to remind everyone that we have the Chicago Grit Bike Race coming up a week from Wednesday, July 23rd. Different route, everybody knows this year we can't do it because of Grand Boulevard. It's moved to the south side by Irish Times and along the south side of the track, so that'll be Wednesday, July 23rd. We have a lot of information on our website, and Cycle Brookfield's putting out information to the people in the area about the street closures, and very confident that the event will go well. The Chicago Grit people do a great job with organizing and setting up the race, and between Cycle Brookfield and our excellent staff, we're able to have we've had some really great feedback on this event, and the new route is drawing some excitement this year, although I think they do want to be back on Grand Boulevard in the future. So hope everyone can come out that day on July 23rd. It's really something to see if you haven't seen it before. What else did I have? This past Saturday, I was invited to Representative Rashid, our state representative, hosted a town hall meeting at the Brookfield Library. He asked me to come by. I was honored to come by, stayed for the event. It was about a 2.5-hour event. He had about 60 constituents there, and he made a presentation about some of the things that had happened in the spring-summer session of the legislature, and some of their goals for the fall, and had some question and answer. Met his new chief of staff, and we exchanged information. I did invite Representative Rashid, as I do with all our representatives, if he wants to make a presentation to the board, maybe when the fall session is back in effect, he would do that. So it was a really well-attended event. I mean, 60 people on a Saturday afternoon in the summer is quite an event, and it was a very good presentation by his staff. There was also representatives from Congressman Garcia, Chuy Garcia's district officer was there, and we got to talk to him also. So it was a productive afternoon. So we thank them for taking the time to come to Brookfield. And as Trustee Gilhooley pointed out, there are services available for mental health issues and other issues. And in a continuing tribute to former Trustee Cote, I'd just like to remind everyone that if you are a veteran in need of assistance, you can do so through the Jesse Brown VA Medical Center. Please call 312-569-6177. You can start with enrollment. If you're struggling or you know someone who's struggling, please call 988. If you are a veteran, please call 988 option 1. We are dealing right now with about 22 veterans a day who are taking their life, and we would like to put a stop to that as soon as possible. The VA has a national coaching and care program as well. Licensed psychologists, social workers are willing to talk to you by phone. We have these items up on our website and the Village website under Community section. It will tie you over to the VAAC, which is the Veterans Affairs Commission of Cook County, and they have a lot of other numbers. There's a lot of phone numbers for homelessness, et cetera, and for those things that veterans that you can take advantage of. So please take a moment, check that page out. If you don't have access to a computer to look at that, the library here in Brookfield, they do loan out computers and hotspots. So you can go there, check out a computer, and you can go to these websites and they can help you with it. So I just want to keep that important reminder going. Thank you. That ends the reports of special committees. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to pass the omnibus agenda.
So moved.
Second?
The motion was made by trustee Kaluzny, second by trustee Hendricks. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark.
Aye.
Trustee Whitehead.
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks.
Aye.
Trustee Narimatsu.
Aye.
Trustee Gilhooley.
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now, moving on to items under regular business. The first item, I'd entertain a motion to pass an ordinance amending the provisions of the village code in order to impose a municipal grocery retailer's occupation tax and municipal grocery service occupation tax.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by trustee Kaluzny, second by trustee Kyle Whitehead. This was discussed at the last committee of the whole meeting. Doug provided us an update. Just a reminder, this is a tax that is currently in place. The state indicated that they were no longer going to collect it, and they, in the law that they did, they gave a provision that non-home rule communities can enact it themselves and collect it themselves. Doug made a presentation on the possible impact on the budget and what neighboring communities are doing, and we discussed it at the last committee of the whole meeting. So I will open up to any questions or comments from the village board.
I have a question. I'm
Trustee
sorry, I missed
Sure.
that conversation since I wasn't here. But the second part of that, the service piece of it, like, is 1% on the occupation tax and another 1% on the service piece? It's just 1% overall. Okay. Can you explain the service part of that? Like, what does that mean?
You know, I'm not very familiar with that. Adam might have a better handle on what because you always have to do the two, and I'm
It
not
is
exactly
required,
sure
but
why.
yeah.
Yes, it's just 1% tax.
Okay.
There are certain grocery stores that provide warm meals, hot meals to go, but they're not technically considered groceries, but they're still taxed this 1%. So other services that are not just the buying of the traditional groceries are still captured, not with an additional 1%, but taxed at the 1% because they're not considered groceries.
Okay. All right, thank you. And it's currently at 1%, the one that, for the state?
Yes,
Okay. So it's not an increase?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments from the board?
I will just say that, I just want to acknowledge that, residents are feeling the strain of rising costs and struggling to pay bills each month. And I think even a 1% tax on essentials can be a challenge. At the same time, I think the grocery tax, especially given some revenue shortfalls this year, is important. And it kind of represents at least partial compensation for staffers, whether it's Parks and Rec or Public Works or other departments in our village, or debt payments for vital infrastructure projects, or keeping Parks and Rec programming rates low to accommodate assistance to families and seniors who need help accessing village programming. So I really struggled with this vote. I've talked to fellow residents and staff and fellow trustees. But for now, I think I'm in favor of maintaining the grocery tax, and we'll maybe revisit in future years when we talk about budget priorities and resident needs.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I appreciate Trustee Narimatsu's concern about the regressive nature of the tax. I don't think any of us are excited about a tax conversation like this. I hope we as a board can continue to work together on affordability issues, not just in tax policy, but across the board. The reality is, though, we have limited options to raise local revenue for all the critical services we provide, so I don't think we can afford to let this lapse. I think we need to keep it in place, and we also have to think about the future. It's a relatively small portion of our budget right now, but hopefully we can see economic development, and Tischler's could grow or expand, and there's potential that it could be a larger portion in future years. So also other surrounding communities seem to be either have already kept the tax in place or are planning to soon. So I think the responsible choice for us is to keep it in place.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Ketchmark.
Aye.
Trustee Whitehead,
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks,
No.
Trustee Narimatsu,
Aye.
Trustee Gilhooley,
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item, I'd entertain a motion to pass a resolution authorizing the levy of an additional tax for the Brookfield Public Library site.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Trustee Hendricks, second by Trustee Whitehead. This is an annual request. We can get the Brookfield Library Board is their own separate levy or taxing body, but their levy does go through the village. They have the authority to request an additional tax for purposes of funding various building, property, and maintenance project per state statute. Their board voted to adopt the request for an additional 0.02% tax for this purpose. It's required for us to come forward and pass it as part of the levy, so we need to vote on this. It is a tax through the library, and there is a challenge process that is listed in the ordinance that talks about that people could challenge this by circulating petitions and asking that it be placed on the ballot. But this is an annual request through the library. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark,
Aye.
Trustee Whitehead,
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks,
Aye.
Trustee Narimatsu,
Aye.
Trustee Gilhooley,
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item, entertain a motion to pass a resolution for change order number 3, Phase 2 of the 2024 lead water service replacement project in the amount of $374,400.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Tim, can you just summarize what this and the next two items are, well, this and the next item are about, what the nature of the change order is?
Yes, this one is really same thing we discovered last year. We make our best estimates based on the data we have in front of us of how many lead lines are out there. Once we go out there with water main projects and street projects, the ground gets dug up. We discover some additional lines that were not identified in the original survey that need to be, that we think should be replaced at the time of construction, so that we're not tearing up areas and new roads the first time, but we're doing it originally. So that's, as we did last year, is the need for the change order. We're trying to time these so that we're doing them when the roads are already torn up. 5-star in this year's case and in last year's case was the contractor that's doing the work, so they're already mobilized out there, so it's the most cost-effective and convenient time to have these things added to our program.
And they're holding their unit price per the original contract?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board as to this item? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark,
Aye.
Trustee Whitehead,
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks,
Aye.
Trustee Narimatsu,
Aye.
Trustee Gilhooley,
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And the next item is related, the projects were broken up into two phases, Phase 2 and Phase 3. So now I'd entertain a motion to pass a resolution for change order number 3, Phase 3 of the 2024 lead water service replacement project in the decreased amount of $112,000.
Right, I just wanted to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Yeah, this one is actually a better one, the decrease.
decrease in the contract amount.
But we still have to, we have a change order because the contract amount is decreasing by.
No, thank you for pointing that out. So it is correct. It is in the decreased amount of $112,700 for the contract from 5-Star Energy Services.
Yes.
There a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Trustee Narimatsu, second by Trustee Hendricks. Tim, you want to explain basically how the reduction has come about? Or,
I think Lauren is the best person that can explain that. She knows the
Lauren-
details.
Laurie, could you just come up to the microphone, please? Just, I hate to put you on the spot, but just summarize what happened here, that we're asking for a reduction in the original contract price because less work is,
Well, based on my conversations with Derek, which have been really limited, obviously they found more, but I don't really have a solid answer for you, but I can get it more information. So that's not really kind of an unanswer, but I know it's less, so that's good.
Oh, that's
And I
fine.
do have the change order documentation here. I don't know if that helps you, but I can email it to you.
So, but as the memo that was prepared indicates that it is a decrease
Yes.
in the amount and because of the phases that was done, so.
Yes, so
I-
phase 3,
I think what happened was we working with Derek and Hancock, they approved, and you approved a change order with certain quantity pricing for a certain number of replacements. We've had really good luck with Five Star. They're not only a good contractor, but they're doing things effectively and efficiently. There's been savings achieved in their actual administration of the previous change order. And so now they're basically giving us back a credit for the work that they've already done.
And that's the way it's described in the memo, that it's a kind of a balancing of the kind of final balancing of all the
some of it's
counts.
kind of a guesstimate of, you assume that some are going to be lead, some are going to be copper, and then they wind up being the opposite, and then you wind up being in the green over the red, so.
But basically, we're asking the board to approve that the contract price is reduced by $112,700. So-
Sounds great.
Works for
We'll
me.
take the money.
They're 100
So, any questions or comments from the board on the motion?
No.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Ketchmark.
Aye.
Trustee Whitehead.
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks.
Aye.
Trustee Narimatsu.
Aye.
Trustee Gilhooley.
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The last item, I'd entertain a motion to pass a resolution waiving the bid requirement for design and engineering services for EV charging stations.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by trustee Kaluzny, second by trustee Whitehead. As the memo explains, the village decided to proceed with this. We were awarded the $140,000 grant from the state for Driving Cleaner Illinois matching grant to support the installation of these electric charging stations. And there's 3 planned at Ellard Park, and 4 will be installed at the Village Hall. And to move this project forward, staff is recommending entering into a professional services agreement with White, WIGHD and Company, which has submitted a proposal for the full design. Staff's recommendation is this is the most efficient way to move forward with the project, that these are professional services and putting it out to bid would not be the most efficient way to come up with the best. The total fixed fee for these services is $35,000, so this is a request to waive the bid and award it to White, who's experienced and kind of leader in the industry in this. Questions or comments from the board?
I just had one question about the timeline. It said there's 3 phases, and that we need to have them installed by July 31st. So can you just share a little bit about how waiving the bid process is moving it along quickly in the timeline needed? Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Until July 31st of next year.
Next
right?
year, sorry, 2026.
So we have to move relatively quickly on this because we need them to give us the evaluation of it first, with the intent being that it would be here at the Village Hall, installed here first, and then second would be Ellert Park. So once we get that back, then we'll be able to plan accordingly from there, because we do have, it's a matching grant that we have. So we have to get this part of the process done first with the analysis and, everything in terms of construction.
So that we know what to include in our part of the budget?
Correct.
Got it.
So roughly as a timeline, we need to have this done no later than October. So then by the end of December, we'll have a good idea of what the village is going to be able to contribute to it and what we need.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Other questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark.
Aye.
Trustee Whitehead.
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks.
Aye.
Trustee Narimatsu.
Aye.
Trustee Gilhooley.
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That ends the items we had under regular business. Tim, do you have anything by way of manager's report?
Sure, I've got 2 quick items. As you mentioned, President Garvey, I was honored to represent the village at the zoo last week for the grand unveiling and ribbon cutting of their new Gorilla Conservation Center. I want to thank Jennifer Bader, the governmental affairs manager of the zoo, for inviting us. President Garvey wasn't there in person, but there was a nice shout out to you by one of the Cook County commissioners. Really was an impressive array of dignitaries there. The Speaker of the Illinois House spoke. The Speaker of the Illinois Senate was there. various county representatives, and of course, President Atkinson of the zoo. I would strongly encourage anyone to get out there. It is a phenomenal facility. The big change you'll see, I actually didn't get into the interior areas, but most of the ribbon cutting was outside. And that's where I think most of the dramatic changes and improvements are. The outdoor habitat that's out there. It was almost like the gorillas were on cue, because as the president was talking, they came up right up to the glass, and they were very attentive as they listened to him. It's a really phenomenal facility, beautiful. It's now open to the public, so I would encourage you to get out there and take a look at it. Really nice. Second of all, we're, as hard as it is for me to believe, we are reaching the beginning of the end of the Grand Boulevard streetscape improvements. If you haven't been out there lately, I would encourage you to maybe take a walk. On the west side of the street, the new light poles are installed, brick pavers are installed, the new sidewalk is installed, and it's really exciting. The seat wall right at the corner of Brookfield Avenue, and it's not going to be as big as the forms that are up there now make it appear, but there's a lot of infrastructure work that has to go into allowing that wall to go up. It's very exciting. This week, what you can look forward to is the same type of improvements on the east side of the street. The lights, the brick walls, and the brick pavers. And they've already milled up the roadway on the west side. It'll be replaced this week, and then next week they start milling up the east side, and it'll be a whole new roadway probably by the end of next week that's installed out there. Very good news. It's on schedule and within budget. So, and I want to thank and acknowledge the business owners. They've been great. I know it's been an inconvenience for them. Hancock Engineering is continuing doing its they're out there every day, troubleshooting things, spitballing ideas and so forth. And they've kept the project on schedule and on budget and working as well as we possibly can with the business owners. So hold tight. It should be done in about a month, a little over a month.
Tim just reminded me of something, that the Chamber of Commerce is having their after-hours event for July is at the Brookfield Zoo. It's Thursday, July 24th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And you join the Brookfield Chamber of Commerce along with Riverside and the Grange Park Chambers of Commerce and the Berwyn Development Corporation. Light appetizers and beverages will be served, a visit from animal ambassadors, and a short presentation on the zoo's mission as it pertains to community conservation efforts. Just a great way to get to know people in the Brookfield business community. There's no agenda. This is a meet and greet. It's casual. Any members of the chamber or any prospective members, just a great way. You're welcome to come. You do need to RSVP. Just go to the brookfieldchamber.net under their events page, and you can sign up to go to that great after hours. Be a fun one to attend.
Thank you, Trustee Gilhooley. Tim, do you have anything else? No. And I wanted to, again, thank the business owners, and I want to thank the community. It's been difficult to get onto 37 Block Grand, but it is possible, and the business owners appreciate people going out of their way to come out and support them. They are getting by. I know they'll be very happy when it's open, and looks like we're on schedule for music on Grand in August. I think we might have a record turnout that night, and I just
American
asked,
English, a very, very popular Beatles cover band, so we're going big.
I asked people to continue to try and patronize those businesses as we move forward. It's, the restaurant business and bar business is tough as it is, but every little bit matters. So if you get a chance to go out, this is how we always do this. We got the businesses through COVID. Our residents did that with the carryouts and everything else. And I just love the way the business communities band together and help each other out. The Grand District is working together. And, I just have to comment that I see the shops on the 8 corners, working so well. And, Baroni's and the Treasure Depot, they're promoting the shops and everything else. Our businesses realize that they're helping each other and they're not competing against each other. They're all, and I think that's what makes Brookfield unique. So if we can keep these businesses going through these rough times, it's really going to pay off. So thank you to everybody. That ends the items we have on the village board agenda. So at 7:10 p.m., I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
The motion to adjourn was made by trustee Gilhooley, second by trustee Kaluzny. No, can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Ketchmark.
Aye.
Trustee Whitehead.
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks.
Aye.
Trustee Narimatsu.
Aye.
Trustee Gilhooley.
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We just need a few minutes, and we'll go into the committee of the whole meeting. Thank you.
You're talking about the shirt? Kai got one. And he wears it around. No, not me. My son, Kai. It says Brookfield Bombshell. Okay, fine.
Standpoint? Okay. Okay, we're going to get started with the committee of the whole meeting. If, again, the board members can make sure you have your microphones on. Okay, it's 7:12 PM on Monday, July 14th, 2025. I'd like to call to order the Village of Brookfield Committee of the whole meeting. Noah, can we have a roll call for the committee, please?
Trustee Ketchmark.
Here.
Trustee Whitehead.
Here.
Trustee Hendricks.
Here?
Trustee Narimatsu.
Here.
Trustee Gilhooley.
Here.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Here.
President Garvey.
Here. Thank you, Noah.
Yeah, and Noah Wright filling in as Deputy Village Clerk for Clerk Melendez.
Thank you, Noah. The first item, we have a discussion regarding an amendment to the Village Code, Chapter 6102, S1, S1, S2 subsidiary license to allow Class 14 liquor license holder to hold a Class S liquor license, and 6103, outdoor cafes to allow order and food service as a qualifier to Class S subsidiary licensing. We have a very detailed memo, and as you'll notice, our deputy clerk is now left the dais. He is not just a deputy clerk, he's also a presenter, and
That's why he wore that suit.
so Noah did the great job on the memo, but if you could explain to the board, more so the public, what the recommendation is here to kind of clean up the class licenses, liquor licenses.
Absolutely. So to give some background, and staff was reviewing the special event permit for Imperial Oaks upcoming event, Beats and Brews, and upon reviewing all their checklist items, realized they did not have a outdoor liquor license. And earlier in the village board meeting, we issued them a Class 8 just to handle their one-off event. In 2020, in the first February meeting, they were issued a Class 14 license. The Class 14 allows the retail sale of alcoholic liquor, including beer, manufactured on premise for the purpose of a brew pub. Only Imperial Oak has this license. And later that year, in July, they installed a patio on the east side of the property. Despite the change in service, the business did not update their license and operated without a Class S liquor license. For those who don't know, a Class S liquor license allows businesses to serve either on private, public, or a combination of private and public entryways. For Class S and S2, that is for only on private property, where S1 is a sidewalk cafe. So you see some of those along Grand Boulevard. S3 is assigned to a special event, which ties into some Class 8 events. So, for example, the upcoming event on Broadway, the Classic Car Show at the Chamber, that would be an example of Class S3. For Class S, currently the code only allows those who obtain a Class 1 through 7 or 9 through 12 license. And as Imperial Oak has a Class 14, they are not allowed per the code. Currently, we have 8 Class S license, 2 Class 1, 0 Class S2, and 2 Class S3, and those expire when the Class 8 event assigned to that event expires. So what are we asking? So there's 2 sections of the code we want to highlight. The first one is Section 6-102, and this lists out the qualifications and what applicable classes can get a Class S. We would amend that to include Class 14, which would give them eligibility. The second amendment is regarding in 6-103, discussing food service, and to have a Class S or S2, and based on the requirements of, based on their current business use, they would qualify for a Class S. Food service has to be tied in some way. So as they operate a brew pub, you're asking for them to be exempted from this requirement. And furthermore, one of the reasons why this happened is the Class S liquor license was created before the Class 14, and there was just not that alignment when the Class 14 was created. And this would offer businesses like Imperial Oak and others in the brew pub industry to operate like this in the future. And I'm happy to answer any question you guys may have.
If I could just add, one additional comment. This came to our attention because Imperial Oak has been operating an outdoor beer garden for some time, very successfully with limited or no issues from the village. We discovered, however, that their, as Noah just said, their liquor license doesn't technically allow that. And this will clean that up. And from a staff perspective, we have no concerns with it, but we need the village board to obviously amend the village code if you're in line with our thinking.
Sure. And if you look at the timing, I mean, the July 2020 was right in the midst of COVID when we were allowing the outdoor areas, because that was basically all that was done at the time. And obviously Imperial Oak has been I can report there have been no problems with Imperial Oak from a liquor license standpoint in the past. I mean, this is, I think, one of those cleanup sections where, we know this has been going on, there hasn't been a problem. And in terms of the food service, we knew that Imperial Oak was specifically a brew pub, and there was not specific food requirements. We do know that they have food trucks, they host food trucks on their site and allow things like that to happen. But I think the board is well aware of what Imperial Oak is. And right now, they're the only brew pub, as you mentioned, but, we're not adverse to attracting other brew pub establishments, and this might help attract them if this is a little bit cleaner, I think, so.
Where does, where would a place fall that allows alcohol service, gambling, and no food? We talked about this years ago. Like, what class would that fall under? Because I thought that we did not allow that because there would be no food service. I don't know. Do you remember?
Off the
what I'm
top of my
talking
head, I don't know what class is
Don't either.
attributed to what pubs or taverns, as I call them. I think it's your classes 1 through 6.
Okay.
But some of those are grocery stores. Some of them are your pubs or your taverns. However, just because you are class 1 through 6 does not automatically qualify you as eligible for an outdoor cafe. There's distance requirements in section 6103 in order to have an outdoor cafe, as well as this requirement that you're either some kind of food service. Either your primary business is food service or your primary business is alcohol service, but you also serve food is a requirement in section 6103.
Okay.
But your question also related to gaming?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't allow just alcohol establishments just to have gaming.
Right.
That's not been allowed, it's been the policy of the board.
So nothing has changed with that? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Other questions or comments from the board?
I just, the part that's bolded in the memo about the serving of food is incidental. So does the fact that they are serving food sometimes not allowing them to have this, or it doesn't matter whether they're serving food with food trucks or not, this license still would apply?
It's been my recommendation that we clarify Section 6103 to carve out a Class 14 from the requirement to serve food incidentally to their business. The way I read the code is that there must be some food service provided by your main license holders. And in discussion with staff, it's my interpretation that just allowing food to be served through an outside vendor on the property might be ambiguous to satisfying the requirement to have some kind of food service, thus necessitating this conversation now about how we're treating Class 14s, specifically this one that has a model where they bring in a food truck some days a week, but not as a permanent food service.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the board? So we have time to discuss this and vote on it on the meeting of the 28th. I mean, there's no specific event coming up that's a conflict or anything at this point, so, okay. We'll give the board a chance to talk about this. If they have other questions, they can reach out to Noah or Adam on this, and we'll vote on this. We'll put it up for a vote on the meeting of the 28th. Thank you, Noah. Okay, and the last item we have is a continuing discussion concerning a resolution to adopt an economic incentive policy. We did talk about this at the Brookfield Economic Development Corporation vetted this, brought forward recommendations. We talked about a previous committee. There was some input from the board. At the board's request, we put it up again for a committee meeting. Libby had given us a previous memo, gave us an updated memo now. Libby, is there anything you'd like to add in terms by way of explanation or clarification since the last meeting?
The only items that I pointed out are some of the items that the board referenced in terms of adding additional guiding principles and definitions that we have. So there was a definition for some of the more common terms that are used. The guiding principles, adding the eligibility grants, that you can't have any defaults with the village, no violations and so forth. Those are the red line changes. Tax increment finance, we added that, an explanation of what that means within the comprehensive code, within our comprehensive plan, just to, illuminate that a little bit further. And then for the property improvement, we added some of the environmentally sustainable upgrades. So those are the main changes to that. I did have one additional recommendation that's not in the draft, and that is just to tie it in and clarify it a little more, that eligible costs have to be directly tied to a facade in the overall project and not just independent a la carte sustainable upgrades. So unless there's any objection to that, I would include that in there. And then.
Could you go back, because that's something new. Does the board have is there any board members have issues, questions related to that provision?
Oh, thank you for adding that. I wanted to share I did bring this up at the Conservation Commission meeting, and there's a couple of folks that would like to look at it further. I will share this with them that it was added, but they have not been able to pull together a meeting between our last board meeting and this one, so maybe it can be something in the future.
Sure, and
But
this
this is great.
policy is intended, it can be upgraded and added as needed.
I do appreciate that it's in there. I think that these specific policies are intended to, they're economic development policies, so they're intended to change the look of the area to elevate everybody. And I do think that if we were to make it so that people could get these grants for just solar panels on their roofs, while that would generally help the community, it doesn't help raise the look of Grand Boulevard or Ogden Avenue in the way that we're trying to in the way that we're trying to do with these grants. So I do appreciate having that there.
I think the one thing the Conservation Commission wanted to try and have as a supplement is there are grants available for other things, and so if they pulled together a list of other incentives that a business or future building might want to look at outside of this, that you could, if they want to do those other things, say like, well, look over here, there's these other
Grants
funding
that would be
opportunities
available.
for those types of projects, and so they're happy to pull together that list.
That would be great.
They're so great.
They're great.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Libby, I kind of cut you off. Was there other things you wanted to summarize? Or?
Just a couple of additional provisions that were added, just the environmental enhancements, just clarifies it a little bit more that we're encouraging environmentally responsible elements into the project scope. And then Section 8, which combines policy review, evaluation, criteria, and updates, just again, defining it, clarifying it more, that it's going to be reviewed yearly by the village manager or a designee, that the village manager can make procedural revisions for applications, updating forms, submission requirements, all the internal structure, but any substantive changes do have to go before the board for board approval. And that the village could consider a combination of incentives, that came up last time, as needed, and the village reserves the right to withhold or reduce or eliminate any of the incentives at any time, or modify them as needed, and that the projects have to be evaluated based on merits, with no incentives that are provided as of right, just because someone applies for them.
And I appreciate you putting that in. I think Trustee Hendricks and others brought it up that, we kind of knew what we wanted, but to put it in there makes it clear that these are not necessarily of right. They're a policy. We want to attract people. We want to give them some predictability. But ultimately, it comes down to the board has to weigh the benefits of a potential project versus incentives that we might give. So while they're guidelines, this board and future boards can still decide, is the proposed incentive something they want to offer in exchange for the potential development and benefit to the community. So I appreciate that language being in there. And I agree with the board that it was good to clarify these things and make it, the clearer it is, the better. So. Trustee Whitehead, did you?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, President Garvey. I appreciate the updates to the draft. I think, there are some eligibility criteria in here, like public benefit and blight, that could be subjective. So I think defining them as best we can is important, not just for this village board and this current staff, but for future boards and future staff that will be using this policy. And to President Garvey's point, our role in evaluating eligibility, I think, is going to be critical moving forward as representatives of the public. Something like the but-for test for the property tax rebate, right? There's potential significant revenue loss for the village in that scenario. So, and something like, would this investment be made without this incentive? I think a lot of the people making that investment would want to make that case, right? So that we can use consultant support to evaluate the argument and the data that they're making. And, before we make a major decision like that, I think it's something we'll have to obviously monitor moving forward. But altogether, the package, I think, is exciting because it continues to advance the development we're seeing across the village and will put us in an even stronger position moving forward. So, yeah, I look forward to more conversations using the policy.
Other questions or comments from the board?
Couple comments. We talked about this a little bit at the last meeting, and I'm wondering if this is something that gets dealt with in the definition section as it relates to property tax and sales tax rebates, abatements. Again, we're talking the village share of that, not the overall, which, the village share of sales tax is 1%. So if somebody comes in and thinks there's a rebate possibly of a 10% sales tax like we'd pay here, that's not correct.
Right.
I'm wondering if we have something like that in there to show that, because it's property tax too. We wouldn't be rebating or abating their property taxes other than the 25% that is the village share, correct?
Correct.
So maybe that's something that's dealt with in the definition section?
That can be included. I can add that in there. There'll be additional definitions that'll be in the application depending on which incentive they're applying for as well. That'll be fleshed out even more.
And then on the Cook County programs, again, on the Class 6B, that still would apply to the Southview Industrial section, because again, it lists the Ogden Avenue and 47th Street. But in terms of the industrial area, we do have Southview that stretch from Maple to Kemen. And then,
Oh, yeah, I can include that. That's the Southview portion of it.
and then to that whole section though, do we have any oversight review of the county program in this?
Not in this policy. So that would be something that would be in an application, so when they apply for it.
But aren't these county programs where
They
the
are.
county would review it and approve it or not approve it, where
is
it wouldn't be
correct.
up to us?
Right, we would simply be on board if we were inclined to be on board for some type of, like a Class 7B reduction.
But do we want to
We
note
would-
that somewhere in there that, these are programs available through the county,
We can direct them certainly to the website to where they would be able to get all the information.
That, or that these are subject to county approval. You know, it's different than the other incentives we'd be offering where it'd be up to us.
That can be added.
I agree with Trustee, especially, making it clear on it's the village's portion of the tax. I understand it could be in the application, but I think it's important to clarify in the policy whether it's sales tax or property tax, that it's the village portion or village share, just so, I mean, the whole point of this document is clarity and predictability for the developers, so I think just adding wherever it talks about tax abatement, whether it's property or sales tax, that it be clear that it's the village portion of it, I think is important.
I can add that language in there, that it's the village portion.
Thank you for making all of these changes. I appreciate them. And I want to point out also the performance benchmarks. I think that's an important thing that we are able to measure, that we're actually getting the benefits that are intended from these policies. One thing I might recommend as we move on and as the facade and renovation grants, the PIP grants, get adapted and the business signage gets pulled out of that, these facade grants, it may make sense to change the review of them from the EDC to the PZC, because as they get bigger, they're more to do with the physical space and the look of the facades. That may be a good change.
Are you suggesting changing that now or in the future if the projects get?
I am. That I think that it would help take some of the work off of the table for the Economic Development Commission. I also think that it's a good task for the Plan Commission, because it's so architectural and because of its nature.
Libby, you have a position on, the board members,
That was something that was actually discussed in front of the EDC, with the EDC ultimately giving a recommendation to keep the PIP together. But it was something that was brought up because we split up the PIP into two tiers, one being just the signage, which is at a smaller dollar amount, and the facade and renovation improvement at a higher dollar amount with some additional requirements on there. So if the board is inclined to add that in there, that could certainly be changed.
well, is there suggested, how does the board feel about that? Kind of splitting up the review, the vetting of it basically versus the EDC versus planning and zoning, based on the nature of the project?
Did the EDC have a position?
Their recommendation was to keep it all together, but they weren't opposed to the PZC doing it.
So it would be the PCC like recommending the grant or approving the design is legit?
I suppose it would be recommending the grant. It would also help avoid smooth a lot of these, I shouldn't say a lot, but occasionally they require variances as well, and so that could help streamline the process.
Right, some of the municipalities do have it where a PZC or a BZA reviews these types of grants for that exact reason, because then it might include a variance, a special use or something like that, of that nature. And it's usually a higher dollar amount as well. So it wouldn't go to the EDC. It would just, EDC would look at, the PIP portion for signage, but everything else would go to the PZC if the board is inclined to do
And I
it.
guess that's what I was trying to clarify. So the PIP, the signage would still
Yeah, the signage could stay with the EDC.
EC.
Right.
I guess my only concern would be slowing the process if it has to go through multiple commissions and.
It wouldn't go through
We're
EDC
saying
and
replace.
PZC, no.
Okay.
That was not the recommendation.
Got it.
Yeah, it would just be, instead of the EDC, it would be the PZC, if the board's inclined to switch that.
It
Or
sounds like
that
it would,
portion of it, since we have two tiers now.
yeah, it sounds like it would almost expedite that process in case, like you
Think
said,
it
there are any of those other scenarios.
But if they're going for signage and facade improvement, then does it need to go through both?
We didn't quite get that far.
I would have to.
I would think
We
it
made
would. EDC would vote on the signage, and that can go separately.
But the processes could go
the facade, or
simultaneous.
simultaneously.
Okay, I'm just looking for a consensus from the board and direction. Is there a desire to split it up with the PIP going through the EDC and others going through the planning and zoning?
How big of a burden is that on the business owner? Is it just a pretty simple process, like to do both of those, or is we creating a hassle? Or
I don't think that the process would change. It would just go to a different
It
committee.
would just go to.
Right, and maybe, if it's the signage and for the facade, they're bundling it together, then it would maybe just go to the PZC instead of EDC and PZC. If it's just the signage that's
Got it.
just in front of the EDC, it really depends on, it would be very burdensome if they have to do both, and then a committee of the whole, and then
Right.
board approval.
I think when we started this, it was meant to be a pretty streamlined process. At some point, some of the discussions have probably been too streamlined in some of the approvals. But we certainly don't want this to take months to get approved.
No.
Especially for a $2,000 sign grant or something.
Right. I'm leaning towards Trustee Hendricks, your recommendation. Just because if there are variances or anything else needs to be considered, you can just take care of it all at once.
But if a variance isn't required, it still wouldn't have to go before the board. It would just be recommended, and be on committee of the whole, just the
A recommendation
omnibus.
for the
or-
grant. Right.
It wouldn't have to wait 2 board meetings like a variance would.
Correct. Right?
Well, yeah, you do have it.
You
Your
do.
process is everything goes to the committee
Everything.
first. We
Right.
can skip that part of it on a regular, on a straightforward, but that's a debate that you need to have
Okay.
as a board. That's our practice.
Correct, there's not a requirement to come to the committee of the whole. I thought on occasion, we might have come directly to this board for PIP grant approvals, especially when the Economic Commission was vetting them first, but you could take it directly to the Board of Trustees if you would like.
And I mean, this is an issue that staff has broached with me in the past about bringing some things directly to the board meeting. We can still discuss them at a board meeting as we do with the committee of the whole, so I'm open to input from the board on that. It just because it's up on the board meeting doesn't mean that we can't discuss it. That 2-week window between committees and boards sometimes is there just to get public input, but I'm open to the direction of the board if you'd like some of these things to, especially time-sensitive development issues where there's, whether there's unanimous recommendations. I guess I could, if I get direction from the board, I could use my discretion and put them on a board meeting, and then if you say you want more time, then you get more time, and we can use the board meeting as a bit of a committee meeting and continue it to another meeting going forward. So that will help expedite the process.
I guess I would recommend that, expediting the process if it's already being vetted by planning and zoning, and they're going to be vetting it pretty thoroughly, or Economic Development Commission. I don't know that we need to discuss it then 2 more times.
And
Especially
one
if
of the
it's-
incentives is fast-tracking it, too. We do reference that in there as part of a fast-track process for permits and everything. So that would cut out one step.
But in general, we're talking about this specific incentive policy as opposed to cases in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission. They always vet things
Sure.
for
Right.
us, so I mean, I think, we could still committee those, and again, I could reach out to the board if individual issues come up and there's time-sensitive things, but
Yeah, I'm thinking of items that are applying for the grant but not requiring a variance.
And just for the PIP
Correct.
incentive, not for the other incentives would still come to the committee first.
right.
Yeah. Works.
All right, is that clear enough kind of consensus? And can we get these changes done by the 28th?
We can. I just want to clarify, so for the business signage, if it's just that, it stays with the EDC still. It's only for the facade and improvement grant, or if they're bundling both together.
Correct.
Okay.
I think
Yeah,
it's,
that'll be easy enough.
keep the signage with the EDC. I mean, I think that's been the consensus from the board.
Absolutely.
Okay, anything else we need to clarify?
No, that'll be.
Okay, so let's put this up for the 28th, and if there's any questions, again, we do want to move this forward, but we want to get it right, and obviously, it's always subject to revision, so let's put it up on the 28th. Okay. That ends the items we have up for, thank you, Libby, and thank you to, this has been a lot of time from staff, the EDC, a lot of input on this, the board has a lot of input, and the changes were very productive, so thank you to, and this is a very important document going forward, so I appreciate all the time on it. So that ends the items we have about the committee of the whole. I will again open up to public comment. Is there anyone on this side that's any public comment? Anyone on this side that has any public comment? Okay. I regret to inform that the Brookfield 10U All-Stars did lose to a very good LaGrange Park team, so they will finish second in the district this year. Congratulations to Coach Melendez and the girls, but they made a nice run, but they lost the first game, so there will not be a second game tonight, so. That ending the items we have on the committee of the whole at 7:40 PM. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by trustee Gilhooley, second by trustee Narimatsu. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark.
Aye.
Trustee Whitehead.
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks.
Aye.
Trustee Narimatsu.
Aye.
Trustee Gilhooley.
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, we're adjourned at 7:41 PM. Thank you for coming, everybody.